Welcome to Outback Outdoors. Make sure you like, subscribe, and click the alert to stay up to date on all our new videos.
Welcome to the Inspired Wild Podcast. We are here in Nebraska. I'm sitting with Adam Wells, Jake Shaw, Marketing Director of Mountain Ops.
Yep.
And Garrett Drack. And Jake, this is your first time hunting Nebraska, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. This is my first time actually hunting out of state. I'm actually pretty new to hunting big game in general.
The one on the right's definitely a buck.
Wonder if all three of those are.
I'm betting all three are bucks.
Sloane Brown with Yeti. Great guy. We'll get him on here in the next podcast, hopefully, because they're actually
on a stalk
they're
right
on
now,
a stalk
isn't he?
right now. So I'm excited to hear what happens. Garrett, Adam, and you were basically a team. We'll call you guys
The A-team.
The A-team. Okay. All right. Yeah. Sounds good. Adam, take us through that first morning, which was yesterday morning.
Well, I'll just start off. I spotted some bucks coming out of some standing corn. Oh, that's a good buck in the back.
Yep.
Well, I would shoot that buck.
I'd shoot it. Yeah, so we tried to get in on them. That quickly realized that we couldn't get too close to them just because of how those, you called them coulies, were. And we backed out, went around onto the road. And once they went out of sight on the other side of that draw, I just took off. And I just wanted to get into the next draw because if they were going to the corn, maybe I could cut them off. That's exactly what happened. There they are. Okay, I'm gonna go down, back up this. I think they can hear us a little bit. They all kind of got up, but then they all kind of stood up and now they're walking, just grazing across. So I kind of want to go up, see if we can cut them off. I'm going to go up there and see if I can see anything else that I could hide behind. Yeah, we've got 1, 2 bedded. Let's just stay here for a minute. And I just told him, I said, let's just wait right here. Let's just sit down and just see if they come.
We had sat down for 90 seconds,
Yeah.
maybe 2 minutes, and I have my headphones on, I just hear Jake, oh, there they are. I mean, it was that quick. It never happens like that. And this time it did. It was crazy.
Yeah.
They walked right up the draw. Like Jake said, we were trying to get in front of them, and he picked the spot perfectly.
At that point, we're sitting there, there they are. And I'm freaking out. I got total buck fever, whatever you want to call it. But I think it was just partially because I was sitting there and I thought it would take a little bit. But all of a sudden, I just see him out of the corner of my eye. Obviously, I ranged him before that. Drew, he looks over at me, waited for a second, lifted up, anchored, and shot.
Adam, talk about that shot placement. That is a non-lethal shot.
Yeah, if you're right through the top of the back there, above the spine, you'll have a sore spot, but honestly, they hurt themselves worse fighting than what that did.
And just to clarify this is the first hour of the first day of the hunt. And like Adam, you were saying earlier, usually it's 3-4 hours before you even go on your first stalk every morning, just because we're trying to relocate them and let them bed down. I've never had it happen that quick before. That was crazy.
Yeah, it was 0 to 60 like that.
Yep,
And
I agree.
there was a lot of nerves involved there, that's for sure.
I was shaking so bad. I think I just missed it by like 2 inches or 3 inches high. That was perfect. Like perfect. I just wish I would have made a perfect shot. I just trying to settle my pin. And it so happens that that's the one I wanted. Out of all 4. I just wonder if I got my range wrong or if it was just me just freaking talk about buck fever. Freaking leaf over here. So let's go real quick then with the next encounter. We hooked up with you guys because we had been tracking a pretty big buck from our glassing point.
Yeah, you see like this little point that goes out past this cottonwood. That's going to open up this canyon pretty good. I'm almost wondering if the wind's blowing pretty much this way.
You think we'll be okay with that?
Yeah, it's shifted pretty much north now.
Why don't we come out to this point? Why don't you guys move and
Go past the windmill and check out the next canyon.
Because they're either here or they're there.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm going to guess most of the deer are going to be bedded out of the wind on the leeward side of these slopes, but that's when that sun's going to start heating them up and they'll start moving when they get them. We'll cut down to this little cedar and then we'll just try to stay off the skyline to these canyons, and we'll drop in and like you'll be able to look up into a lot of these little cuts as well.
Jake actually saw these bucks. He was the first one to get eyes on.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we were looking up at each one of these draws as we were kind of making our way to that point that you're talking about. Just kept going slowly, sitting down, glassing up, trying to see if we could spot him. Just out of the corner of my eye, I saw in a draw that we weren't necessarily looking at, a little further down, saw those 3 bucks all together, and they went out of sight. So we decided to move and see if we could get on them.
Got him. Ooh, yeah, that's a good buck in the back. All right, let's keep track of them. See if they'll bed up again. A good spot. That's why it's important to pick your head up occasionally, right? Oh, there's something. There's our bucks. Right over here.
Then those deer stopped on that one side hill, and then they just kind of decided what they want to do, and they started working right back to us.
Yeah, they did kind of like a J,
Exactly.
just a hook.
And I was just like, I bet they're coming up the draw underneath us, pointed to a nice little shadowed cut bank where you could tuck in and hide.
I'll slide down to this next yucca. Let you get eyes on them too. Yeah, that's a nice buck. Pushing 170, I would say.
I slipped over. When I didn't see them there, I knew they were going to be right underneath.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it that they came right up that draw that we were in, and they were pretty close to being in my lap, but they had other plans and bedded right there. I just shimmied real slow for 45 minutes took me probably to get in
and
position.
There was enough of a wind that when it picked up, the grass was moving pretty good.
Yeah.
It was noisy, and so you were trying to time your movement with when the wind would
you noticed
pick up.
that, huh? Yeah. Those bucks both stood up. If I drew, he took a step to the left, so he's quartering away from me, and settled my pin, made sure I was good, and at that point, just let it go.
We looked at the video and it looked like a really good hit. I don't know.
Okay, so they're heading north
Okay.
on that, like number 3 or so,
Okay.
this way.
Let's go up where we can see, and I'm thinking, especially if you think he's hit back, probably go grab some lunch, give it a couple hours.
Okay.
It'd
be nice to find some blood.
It'd be nice to find some blood to come back and start on. Exactly.
We looked at the video and it looked like a really good hit. I don't know.
You guys did get on blood, and the crazy thing is, what's the key here is that you do everything in your power to recover. And you guys, it took you time, but you finally got on some blood. You found good blood.
I mean, the blood dried up after about 3/4 of a mile. We had to call a neighboring property, get permission to continue to follow.
Into the next day.
Into the next day.
Tonight we knew this buck came this direction. This is the one crossing onto the neighbors, and I actually looked here earlier today. I just didn't quite get this far on it.
Yeah, I don't think he came down this far.
I quit just past these trees. I just had to go another 15 yards, and I would have found this earlier. Yeah, also looking for a sign, and here we are. We finally found the sign we were looking for. But yeah, he's on the neighbors. Try to get permission to go in and look for him, and tomorrow morning I will come back, and hopefully he won't be too far in here.
Yeah.
So you got hold of the landowner?
Yeah, so I called this morning when I got here, looked on the map, made sure I knew the name of the person that owned it, called him up and just told her what was going on. I wasn't around from around here, and she was really nice. Little drops.
Well, let's follow it out as far as we can.
We gave it 100% effort to recover that animal, and all the indications were it was just a flesh hit. Even though on the video it looks good, the blood on the arrow didn't have the lung blood. It looked, every indication was a flesh hit.
It's a game of inches,
It really
and
is.
it really came down to less than.
I mean, you cut the distance to where you had to be, waited for the deer to stand,
You did
waited
everything
for him
right.
to turn, and even when you're doing everything absolutely right, sometimes it doesn't go out how you'd expect it to end.
So Sloane, introduce yourself.
So I'm Sloane Brown. I'm the hunting specialist at Yeti. It's the coolest job in the world, coolest brand in the world. Trev, when did you invite me on this hunt? It was like July,
I think
maybe?
but it was like pretty
June.
close to after you started with Yeti.
Yeah, and I had seen the film you guys did on the hunt last year, and I was like, God, it looks like fun. Like, just awesome terrain, like the camaraderie and like the back and forth banter and the amount of deer and the stalks you can put on.
I was really excited when you were as excited because it's a target-rich environment.
So we spotted this buck on the first morning. He was on the wheat field. And he was with 2 other good bucks and a bunch of does. And he fed off the field, and we tried to like circle back around and relocate him, and we never found him.
I saw those, and we kind of went over that a little bit.
Yeah, on the first podcast, he was with those bucks that Jake stalked in on.
Yep.
Yeah.
We saw him again this morning. And he kind of fed across the field, and the field's kind of got a little hump in the middle of it. So we lost sight of him when he crossed over that hump.
Yeah, I would be happy to shoot that buck.
Dude, he's nice.
But Adam was on the different side of the property and could see him feed through.
Some deer going into that standing corn. I bet those guys can't see them.
He was able to kind of tell us where he dropped off, which kind of little coulee he dropped into. And so we made a game plan to kind of sneak around a coulee that paralleled the one that we thought he was in.
Adam just texted me and he said that he still has eyes on that buck because we just lost him. And by lost him, we were watching a video on your phone and we looked up and he was gone. So,
Yep.
But he texted us, he's still got eyes on him. We can't see him because he moved behind that belt of trees and it looks like he's going to bed on that far side.
Yeah.
So we're going to move back around to where Adam's at, get eyes back on him.
Yep.
Maybe not watch videos on our phone.
Yeah.
And then put him to bed.
And dirt nap. Like, go to bed forever.
Thank God Lane was leading the charge, because we just started up the very first pitch, and the buck I ended up shooting shook his head, and Lane saw him.
Lane, how far were you from him when you saw him shake his
We
head?
ranged that at 116 yards.
So you guys were pretty close already.
We were close. I think Sloane said we were about 30 seconds from really messing it up.
Right.
So he was in a spot where the wind was perfect right in our faces. And we kind of made a game plan. Lane decided to go up and around and get a different camera angle. And Dustin and I went up the bottom of the draw. He was behind me. And we got to the corner where I could start to peek around, but I knew I still wasn't going to be able to see him. And he was tucked in between a cedar tree and basically a cliff wall. I slipped my stockisons on, which those things are awesome, by the way.
I like to call them your ballet shoes.
Yes, we got up there, and I just kind of we had enough wind. I don't know, it probably wasn't too strong. It was probably 12, 15 miles an hour, but enough to cover
your,
yeah.
Lane, how far did you set up for the secondary angle?
Exactly 100 yards.
Okay.
Because I backed off, and then I came up over a lip, and I hid behind a yucca. And I had a different angle, so I could see the buck completely, and I could see the doe that was with him completely.
And we didn't know there was a doe.
I didn't know there was a doe until she ran out.
I had to get higher, so I kept going uphill, and as I was going uphill, I was getting closer and closer, and I was ranging the tree that I knew he was tucked up against. Yes, so I just like kept sneaking up. Like I was like 17 yards, and I was like thinking to myself, I can't believe I'm this close. That's the closest I've ever been to a living, breathing deer, I think. I had him at 7 yards to the tree, so meaning he was probably 5.5 yards from me. Am I just going to stand here until he stands up? That could be hours.
So can you see the top of his antlers the whole time?
When I got to 7 yards,
okay,
I could see the top of his antlers, finally. The wind was perfect, right into my face. And Lane says, throw a rock. There's no rocks around. So I find a little patch of dirt, and it's like, luckily it had snowed a couple days ago, so it was wet enough to like ball up in my hand. Somehow transfer it to my left hand, ball it up with my left hand, clip in to my bow with my right hand. Finally, I tossed it past him, and I saw his antlers move, and so I went to full draw, like immediately after I tossed it. Boom, toss, and then full draw. And he stood up, and I let her rip. And he was quartered away really hard, and I hit him back, and I was afraid, right after the shot, I was afraid it was too far back, but he was angled pretty hard.
Thanks for watching Outback Outdoors. We encourage you to comment below, and as always, like, subscribe, and click the alert to stay up to date on all our new videos.